Baby,
What's up?
I was able to vote for 2 years before I actually voted. Dead ass.
Confessions of a delinquent voter, huh?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But baby, I did the same. Dead ass.
Dead ass. We decided for karaoke because of the seriousness of the topic. We didn't want to do karaoke, so we're just gonna, gonna talk about people. We're gonna pass on karaoke because
Right.
it's important. Yeah, I'm gonna do story time.
Okay.
So because of the seriousness of the topic and because of the state of America and the world right now, we decided to pass on story time simply because we
On karaoke, actually.
Oh, my bad. We decided to pass on karaoke because we feel like it's just important to focus on the task at hand.
Agreed.
This podcast is very important to us. Voting is important to us, so we didn't want to make a joke out of it. So we decided to pass on karaoke and focus straight on story time. So this story time is going to take us back to the year 2004. 2004.
That was a good year.
It was a good year. It was a good year.
We were about 2 years in.
Yeah, we're 2 years in.
Yeah.
That was going into my junior year of college. And was it? No. My sophomore year of college, actually.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Going into my sophomore years of college.
Yeah.
No, that was my junior year of college, 2004.
Wait, we met 2002. Yeah, so it's your junior year because we met your freshman year.
College.
We started dating.
And I remember dealing with listening to all of the voting issues that happened in the 2000 election. But at that time, I was only 16 and I couldn't vote. And I remember it was George Bush versus Al Gore. And there was a whole discrepancy about Florida and the popular vote, but Florida being announced as a Republican state and George Bush actually winning the presidency. So I remember saying to myself, when I'm able to vote for the presidential election in 2004, I was going to participate. So in 2004 was the first time I actually voted. And it wasn't until 2008 when I actually started making money. And we were voting again, and I went and I voted for President Barack Obama, that I realized that there were so many other elections in between 2004 and 2008 that I should have been a part of in order to help the man that I wanted to be president put forth the legislation that he was proposing.
Right. So voting for the people locally and on the level that really impacted you, which I'm surprised at because your mom is an avid voter and she is always texting us in the group text to remind us about voting, regardless of the election.
I got to give credit to my mom. She was always that way.
Yes.
But me being 18 at the time, and then I was playing college football.
Got better things to do.
It was during football season. My focus was not on voting. And then to be honest, the reason why I didn't vote until 2004 and then start focusing more on 2008 was because I always had this idea that my vote didn't count.
Absolutely. I can totally agree with that. All right. So election day is November 3rd, 2020. Lord, 2020.
Yeah, I know.
And with the presidency in dire need of change, it is crucial, people, crucial for our communities to get to the polls. If you're not getting to the polls physically, there's voting early. They're sending it in by mail. Shaun King is going to join us today to share important information surrounding the 2020 election and things when it comes to voting. And it's funny listening to your story time. I will also say that I was guilty of thinking, oh, when I turn 18, like automatically I should be able to vote. So I remember going to the polls with my parents. I want to say it was like a local election happening.
My mother took me every
and
time
I went and my name wasn't there. So I was like, but I'm 18. Like I should be able to vote, not knowing that there's a process to be able to register to vote, to then be able to vote, you know? And that's just something that I just kind of went over my head. And, you know, my mom was kind of like, girl, didn't you know you were supposed to register to vote? And I was like, I thought it just kind of automatically happened.
No, when I was 18, my mother took me to register to vote.
I hear that.
My mother
Shout out to Karen Ellis. She don't play them games when it comes to voting.
When it comes to voting, my mother don't play no games. And I want to speak to the people as to why voting is so important, how it became important to me. When I retired from the NFL in 2010, I came back to Brooklyn and I started to mentor young athletes in Brooklyn. like I always talk about the Prototype Sports Performance Lab, and I remember dealing with so many issues within my community that the president couldn't change. You know, I had a couple of young men who were dealing with law issues. I had a couple of young men whose families were dealing with health issues. And when you think about these things directly affect us daily. And it was more important for me at that point to know who the precinct, who was the head of the precinct, who was the district leader, who was the alderman, who was your city councilman.
Right.
And at that point, that's when I started going to these meetings. And I remember going to the city council meeting, and we live in Crown Heights at the time. And I remember walking in there to speak to Councilman Cornegie. And I remember seeing the place filled with Hasidic Jewish people. And I remember saying to myself, we have like an even split in Crown Heights between the West Indian Black American community and the Hasidic Jewish community. But when I walked into this meeting, we were underrepresented. So everything that was happening based on the people who were making demands and saying these things need to change.
Right.
And it was at that point that I realized, you know what? I need more funding for my program. I got to know my councilman. I got to know my alderman. I have to know who the district attorney is, because we had a young man who was dealing with an arrest issue and was facing murder charges. And it was important for us and his family to know who the district attorney was going to be. So at that point, it's like, wow, here I am focused my whole life on the president.
The president.
And the sad part is, there were times where I voted because my mom was on my back, where I walked in there knowing it don't matter if I vote because New York is a historically blue state anyway, and the Electoral College is going to vote for him anyway. So what's the point?
I hear you.
And it's like the older I became and the more I became involved in my city and my neighborhood, that I realized, man, there's so many more things that we can focus on than just the presidential election.
I think about times I've walked in to make my vote count. And I look at these ballots and I don't know these people on the ballot.
Right.
So at that point, I'm just like, is it a eeny, meeny, miny, mo? And it's like a shame on you moment that I have for have not done my research and do my due diligence going into these voting, polls to actually pick for somebody that I know will evoke some sort of change that I want to see happen. So there's really a process around educating yourself when it comes to voting and making sure that you are really understanding who is fighting for what. Does it align with what you're looking for?
Right.
And I mean, it's funny, we didn't do a karaoke today, but I'm thinking about that song that my babies love from Bob Marley.
What's that?
Get up, stand up.
Oh, yeah.
Stand up for your rights.
That's the truth.
That was Cairo's song back in the day.
Speaking of standing up for your rights, I think there's an important aspect of voting for a presidential candidate that people don't take into account, right? And I'm going to be very clear. This year, I'm voting for Biden, right? And it's not because I'm a huge Biden fan. I talk about this all the time. When you talk about the 1994 crime bill and the fact that he constructed this bill, and you think about mass incarceration and you think about the Clintons, the Democrats have not necessarily represented Black people and people of color in the best way. I think it's over 85% of the jail population are male population of Black and brown men, right? And you figure a lot of that came from, we talked about this before, the war on drugs and how they weaponized the police department in order to arrest and lock up Black and brown men, even though the crack epidemic wasn't as big as the powder cocaine epidemic was at the time that they declared the war on drugs an actual war on drugs. Cocaine was a way bigger deal, but you could be on cocaine and get away with it. But, you know, that's a different story. What I look at for a presidential candidate is also their ability to appoint judges, right? Donald Trump, to this date, has appointed 194 of the 792 judges that have life terms. Think about that.
They just gonna sit.
Think about that. And I think this is important. You can say what you want to say about Joe Biden, about Donald Trump. I'm not a fan of either one of them. Like, to be perfectly honest, I do think they're both out of touch. They're 70-plus-year-old white men. How could they possibly know what it's like to deal with the issues we have to deal with as a millennial Black couple?
Right.
They just don't.
Right.
But you look at Kamala Harris, and even her track record as a district attorney is questionable. People say, oh, she was doing her job. Yeah, she was doing her job, but she was also allowing things to happen under her watch that allowed for the incarceration of black men and women in California, right? And that was 11 years ago, I believe, but she's had way more legislation and made changes during her time as in the Senate. So she didn't stay at that point. She did make some changes. My thing is, who is Biden going to surround himself with as a cabinet that's going to represent a more diverse America?
Right.
Donald Trump has already proven that he's only going to surround himself with older white males who stay out of touch with what's going on in America.
Yeah, there's no desire for them to be in touch with the rest of America either.
So for me, when I'm voting, I'm not just voting for the man who's going to sit I'm voting for the person who's going to appoint judges and also someone who's going to have a cabinet that looks like America. You understand what I'm saying? And people don't get that. People get all this, how you vote for this guy? He did the 94 crime bill. It's like, how can you vote for Trump? He's a bigot. Whoever you choose, you have to choose and make your decisions based on the totality of what the presidential seat requires.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just about their record. Because if we learned anything from Obama, one man can't change the whole country.
Nope. Not in 8 years.
In 8 years. In 8 years. You need a team. You need people. And you also need Congress. You need the entire legislative branch to be able to represent America in the way it looks, and that's why I'm voting. To
see any kind of change.
Right.
Yeah, so we gonna vote.
Yes.
We know who you're gonna vote for, but the fact is that people need to be out and vote. And one thing that I am extremely disappointed in and really give a side eye to, and we'll talk about this more with Shaun, is just the fact that we can do so many things nowadays.
Yeah.
With just a fingerprint or with your eyes, facial recognition, global entry. There are all of these technologically savvy ways to be recognized and to do things nowadays. And it really makes me wonder, why can't voting be the same way? Why can't I be in a different state than my voting state and not have the ability to vote and vote accurately and efficiently where I am? It has to be snail mail and hand count. Right. And people want to say the system is broken. No. Again, just like racism, the system is designed to work the way they want it to work. Because if there's anything that makes voting more efficient for people, it's not going to have the outcome that they want.
That's the truth. Because America is changing.
It's not. So that's a major side eye that I give. Because y'all could figure out a way to make this shit easier for people.
This is another truth, and people don't like to hear it. America in totality, the American people, are not a country of bigots. The laws are bigoted. The people in power are bigots. But the vast majority of Americans are very different than what America was 50, 60 years ago. It's the truth. People don't want to own up to it, but it's the truth. It is the truth. We have to find a way to make a change. And I'm excited that Shaun King will be here with us to discuss it.
Absolutely. We are going to talk to Shaun. I mean, it's been a long 4 years of bearing a whole lot of tragedy and disappointment, one after the other. So it's time to elect a new president. November 3rd is election day, y'all, all over the country. And if 2020 hasn't been dramatic enough, baby boy, the speculation surrounding this election, I think, is going to be up for a whole Oscar. It's just not even funny at this point. But yeah, we're going to have Shaun King join us and we will talk more and get some insight from him around voting. So Shaun King is here with us today to help us prepare for the upcoming presidential election. Shaun King is a writer, civil rights activist, and co-founder of Real Justice PAC. King uses his social media to promote social justice causes, including the Black Lives Matter movement and so much more. Thank you so much for being us.
Before we start, I have to say the Shaun King, because I appreciate the work you do, brother, as a father and a husband.
Yes.
Because it is a sacrifice for you to put yourself out here like this and continue to do the Lord's work and fight the good fight. So we appreciate you. So I'm going to say the Shaun King.
The Shaun King?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you both and love and respect you both. So glad to be talking to you. And people are nervous. People are super nervous right now. And we have 20 days until election day. But the truth is the next 20 days are all like their own little mini election days because early voting is already underway. So the truth is election day is kind of the end and the end of voting. And I kind of see these next 20 days as equally important. But people, I went to the doctor yesterday, and my doctor, who he actually didn't even know that I did the work that I do. My doctor didn't know anything about me, and I guess
Mhm.
sometime between the last time I saw him and yesterday, he learned who I was. And for like 25 minutes, all he wanted to talk about was the election. And what it showed me, and he was nervous
Right.
and a super smart, informed guy. And everybody I talk to just kind of has a pit in their stomach. And some of it is 2020 has just been so damn
Yeah,
hard
it
Mm.
has
that
been.
it's hard to believe that something good is going to happen on election day because everything else has just been so bad this year.
No, for
Yeah,
sure. I
and it's
mean,
been funny because so many people know you for your fight for social justice, but not a lot of people know you as a political pundit, that you know so much about the voting process, which is why it was important for us to bring you on so you can first educate us, because Kadeen and I, we are the first to tell people we know what we don't know. And if there's
Yep.
anything we can speak on or we can't speak on, we're going to bring someone educated on here to speak on it for us. So we thank you
yeah,
speaking
for
on
sure.
voting, but this is important to all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, with 2020, like you said, with disappointment after disappointment, it's really hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to, election day. So, Shaun, in a digital age of activism, you have also become a celebrity in your own right. So, before we jump into the voting, we just want to know particularly about the challenges that have come along with the added pressure to constantly have to defend to the public or the public's perception of who you are. Because, like we said, Shaun, the father, the husband, the man, you're still fighting the good fight. So, how are you able to work around those challenges that have arose with
It's
that?
it's a lot actually. When people ask me that question, just like you are, I try to be super honest about it. Like it's not clean. It's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard for my family. It's hard for me. Every day I'm dealing with some type of false allegation or accusation or crazy rumor or trending topic. I think over the years I've gotten kind of numb to it, and I don't even necessarily mean that in a healthy way. Like you just grow kind of numb to the negativity,
Right.
and if you see it all the time, I can't I can't allow it in my mind and in my heart and still have a productive day. Like
Mm-hmm.
as soon as we finish this episode, I'm leading I have a staff meeting to lead, and that's how my day goes. It's like one important gathering after meeting, and if I log into Instagram and allow something ugly that somebody says to take me somewhere different, I couldn't even be effective. And so what I've found is even when I respond to something crazy that somebody says, like with an honest, thorough answer, it informs the two of you, it informs people who are supportive, but the people who are detractors, they literally don't care.
Right.
They're
Mm-hmm.
not they're not looking for answers, they're not looking for the truth. They're just kind of throwing daggers, and so what I have found is I've spent so much time answering critics, and what I found is they don't even look at the critics. They don't even look at my answer to the
At all.
Right.
criticism.
At
Right.
all. They don't care. It's funny because I was just looking at a movie trailer for a movie coming out, Judas and the Black Messiah, and it was
Yep.
talking about the Fred Hampton story, and pretty much how the federal government is able to discredit black leadership by pretty much using all forces around them, whether it's local government, whether it's law enforcement, social media. At the time, they didn't have social media, but using COINTELPRO style tactics to pretty much discredit anything you say. And I saw a
Yep.
post that you made about that and having that conversation with former members of the Black Panther Party. And can you speak a little bit about how do you find the strength? Because I don't even want to talk about how you defied it. We want to talk about it. How do you find the strength to continue to push forward when you know these style of tactics are happening?
Well, first, these types of attacks are happening, not just against me, but against anybody who's out here being effective. Anytime you try to challenge the status quo, just challenge the way things are, depending on how much you're trying to challenge it, there will always be opposition. And
Yes.
I guess what stings is it's one thing to know that emotionally. Like I know historically that that's how it happens. It's another thing to be in the middle of it and to actually experience it and deal with it. And the most effective tactic, really, from COINTELPRO is not to turn the media against you. It's not to turn famous people against you. It's to turn your own people
People.
against you.
Yeah.
And when that happens, and that's in some ways some of the biggest challenge that even Malcolm faced, and in some ways it's one of the big challenges that Martin faced. We see him now as just like this super heroic figure, but when Dr. King died, there was a poll just taken almost 3 weeks before he was killed. He was deeply unpopular, not just with white folk. The majority of black folk also disapproved of Dr. King, where
Absolutely. They called him an Uncle Tom.
people had effective. Yes. Now, if you ask anybody who was alive in that final year of his life, they will all now tell you they loved him. But
Right.
in that final year, it wasn't true. And he was when Malcolm was assassinated, he was literally the least popular black leader in America. I mean, he was as if you could imagine in your mind a very unpopular black leader right now, Malcolm was about at that level. Now we have retroactively imposed kind of a popularity on him
Of
that
course.
didn't really exist at that moment. What I do every day, there are 2 or 3 things that I have to kind of remind myself of, almost like a mantra. There are goals that I have that I'm fighting for that are bigger than me, bigger than my popularity, bigger than how anybody feels about me. And so in a lot of ways, I'm always trying to keep my eyes on the goals that we're pursuing. There are people that we're trying to elect, there are laws that we're trying to change, there are policies that we're trying to shift. And what I've learned is like personally, my popularity is up and down. And I can't allow my self-esteem and my own value to kind of ride on that popularity roller coaster. Like
Right.
there are days where I get an award from Rihanna, and then there are days where I'm trending and people are clowning with memes and everything else.
Right.
And so when I'm getting the award, I don't allow the award to make my head get big. And when I'm trending for something ugly, I don't then all of a sudden feel horrible about myself. I kind of just try to be even keeled through it all. I have to remind myself, I mean, I have a family that loves me. I have I've been with my wife for almost 25 years since we were kids.
Nice.
Congrats.
We have 5 kids that are doing well and great. I have staffs that I love and work well with, teams of friends and supporters. But there's something about our psyche that can allow one negative thing to take us in a weird place.
Absolutely.
And I've tried to get beyond that, and it's taken me probably 10 years to figure out how to be above that.
Right.
But you just can't allow your popularity on any given day to dictate how you feel about yourself, good or bad.
Got you.
Well, one thing I've learned about American history is that anybody who was on the right side of politics, especially social justice, during that time is always considered the villain and made public enemy number one. I mean, you look at everyone loved Ali when he was dying, huge parade, the whole world loved him. But during the time when he was speaking for blacks in America, he was public enemy number one, had to give away his titles. You look at Colin Kaepernick 4 years ago, he was considered a terrorist. Like I used to look at memes of Colin Kaepernick, and now he has billboards in New York. And, you know, it's just funny to me that we as a people continue to watch these things happen cyclically, you know, so over and over again. But every time it happens, it's like, no, this guy, no, but this guy is really the terrorist this time. All those other times we were wrong. But this guy, this guy. And then later on in history, they'll be praising you and say, oh, he was right the entire time.
Exactly.
It's par for the course. So let's get into some of this voting, because
this voting stuff. I mean,
I told a story about during story time about the first time I voted. I was 20 years old, and it was during the 2004 election, Bush and Kerry. And I didn't understand the importance and I had 2 years that I could have voted, from 18 to 20 on different elections, and I really did not understand the importance,
Sure.
and I didn't understand voter suppression. So can you talk to us a little bit about what's going on in this election and how we can avoid voter suppression and things of that nature?
Yeah, well, first off, I think you as a young voter is probably almost identical to most of us as young voters. Like, I have to put that in some ways off on our school system and educational
Mm,
system, and even just as a society, we focus so much of our energy on the presidential election
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
that when you turn, like, my two oldest daughters, they're 18 and 20. And so they are getting to vote for the first time in the presidential race. They're getting to vote for the first time this year. But when I was 18 and 19 years old, I had no real understanding about city council races,
Right.
local school board races, state senators, state house races, and one of the organizations that I run, Real Justice, we help elect new district attorneys all over the country.
Oh, that's
We've
important.
now
Yeah.
we've ousted 20 horrible district attorneys and replaced them with brilliant, compassionate women and men all over the country. Well, hell, I was probably in my early 30s before I even understood what a district attorney was.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Same.
and some of that is just how our educational system works. And so even that in some ways is its own form of voter suppression. Voter suppression is anything intentionally or unintentionally that prevents people from voting, prevents people from wanting to vote, thinking that they can vote. And this country, the United States, has one of the lowest average voting rates of any developed countries in the world.
Wow.
Only about 50% of Americans vote in presidential elections.
That's
In
crazy.
most
Wow.
developed countries, it's closer to 75 to 80%. In some countries like Australia, you are required to vote. And if you don't vote, there is a fine. So they have in Australia, it's called compulsory voting.
Oh, wow.
And over 99% of all Australians vote. It's a part of your civic duty. Like,
Right.
Makes sense.
Like
just
paying
like you,
taxes.
Yeah, you pay
yeah.
taxes, you should be forced to vote. It makes sense.
And and Australia is not the only country that does that. And so we have just about 50% participation. And what that means is when so few people participate, is the average American is a non-voter. And even people that you and I know that we think are voting, they're not voting.
Mm.
We
That's
should assume
crazy.
that half of our friends, half of our followers, they're not, and some of it is that they're so busy. Some of it is that they're confused on where they vote. Some people don't know if they're properly registered. So we can tweet it and post it and Instagram it, but there's still just a real low understanding that people have on how and where to vote. It's partly because of our system. It's super unclear. As
And I
we're
think
Right.
recording,
that's my bad. I
yeah,
think that's
Yeah.
done on purpose because you said something last night when we were
Yeah.
talking about this that you can go to an airport now, stick your fingers on a device or let them look at your
And it tells
eyes.
you who the hell you are.
Right. How is it possible that
right,
we don't have the
right.
same technology to just vote wherever you are,
No,
regardless of where
absolutely.
you
There should be
registered?
something in place. I mean, you can do so many things electronically now. You know, you go to the airport, you look in the machine, Clear looks at your eyes, and it knows who you are. Why can't we do something like that
Right.
across the
Oh,
board? And
we could, but the real answer to that is there are people in power who understand that they will stay in power when fewer
if it's
people vote.
there you go.
And
It's truth.
we could absolutely have sophisticated technological systems that are safe, secure, just like you said, just
Convenient.
like Clear at the airport. We
Mm-hmm.
could have those types of things, but our country also spends so little money developing our infrastructure, not just our voting infrastructure, but anything from roads to bridges to our school systems to our healthcare systems. So all of these things are underdeveloped, and it's the American way in some ways. And so I was going to say we saw just this past week in Georgia people waiting in line for 10 to 12 hours to vote,
I have
and
some.
and we called that voter suppression. I saw people say, "Well, why is that voter suppression?" Well, it's voter suppression because people were passing out in line. People had to
Right.
leave
Sure.
and go to work. People had to leave and go pick up their
It's
kids.
discouraging.
Yeah, and it's a way to discourage people from voting.
For sure.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
frustrating, super
So,
frustrating.
yeah, there's also now the question too that, what's going to happen if 45 decides that he will not peacefully leave his seat, if he's not reelected in November. So what do you think about that? Are there any legal protections that are in place to prevent this, or how can we prepare for something like this? Because a lot of people are saying there's going to be a whole civil war if things don't go his way come November 3rd.
Yeah. Well, first, Donald Trump has all but said publicly over and over again that he already thinks this election is rigged, that the voting is rigged against him. He's already kind of projected that after election day, he's not just going to accept the results the way we've seen every other presidential administration before this do. The difference is if you go all the way back to 2000 when there was a contested election that went all the way through the Supreme Court. The difference was neither one of them were incumbents. Bill Clinton had his final term. And so it wasn't like one of them could just say, I'm staying in office. Well, now we're going to get a contested election against someone who already has the position. And we've never really had someone like Donald Trump as president.
Wow.
And so there are probably three scenarios. The first is difficult but possible, and this would be the best scenario, is that Joe Biden wins on election day in enough states that can declare their winner, that he wins by a landslide in enough states that say, we certify that Joe Biden wins, that on election night, he actually crosses 270 delegates. And the media declares him a winner.
Right.
Joe Biden may not, Donald Trump may not immediately accept it, but that's the best case scenario, is that Joe Biden crosses 270. And I've seen a couple pundits kind of show where Joe Biden would have to win for that to happen. He would have to win almost every contested state. If he won in a shocking way, if he won like Texas or something like that, then that would easily push him over that. The more likely scenario, and this is not like a conspiracy theory or doomsday, because of the pandemic, tens of millions of Americans have already voted by mail. And that's okay. And I don't want to discourage anybody from doing that. But about half of American states don't begin counting those ballots until the end of election day. And so what that means is for 20 states where millions of people have voted by mail, those votes don't start to count until late on election night. And those states are already saying like, hey, it's going to take us several days to count them.
Right.
So to be fair to Donald Trump, for a moment, if I was president and no one crossed the 270 threshold and there were still millions of votes out, if I'm Joe Biden or Donald Trump, I'm going to say, no, you're not a winner because these votes have not all been counted.
Right.
Not only would Donald Trump be right to say that, and we have to say this because the roles may be reversed where Donald Trump tries to declare himself a winner before votes in Arizona and Ohio and Wisconsin have been counted, and say Donald Trump is up on election night in some of those states, but none of the mail-in ballots have been counted, then Joe Biden has to be the one to say on election night, hold on, tens of millions of votes have not even been counted yet. You can't declare yourself a winner. That's probably where we're going to be. And that's not a doomsday scenario. It's a result of the pandemic. And there is a small chance that Joe Biden could win on election night. I don't see a good chance of Donald Trump winning on election. He could still win, but I don't think that he would honestly win on election night.
We'd have to see
the more
days
likely
after.
scenario is it's going to take a couple of days.
Right.
Got
And
you.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult.
Oh man. Well, rounding things out with you, Shaun, because I know you have a lot going on. We just want to talk real quick about. We had an opportunity to actually speak with presidential hopeful Biden about his campaign, and we believe that the conversations like that are necessary, especially for the Black community, and especially now. But a lot of people are really feeling like they're just going to have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Right. You have, Kamala Harris, her record as a prosecutor. You have him and the legacy of the '94 crime bill. People are rightfully leery of their willingness to be able to bring positive change, especially to people of color. So, giving their reputations, what do we have to look forward to if they're elected? How can we continue to put pressure on Harris and Biden to meet our needs and demands if they are to be elected into office?
Yeah, and I got permission from my staff to start this next meeting a few minutes late, so
Thank you,
we can
staff.
go on.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much.
I just messaged them and let them know I needed a few more minutes, but
Appreciate it.
so I was a huge critic of Joe Biden, and I'm not a Joe Biden fan, or I'm not a Joe Biden supporter. I've written long pieces about his record on mass incarceration and criminal justice in general.
Yes.
I have to remind people, though, that in all elections, not just presidential elections, but in governor's races and mayor's races, often your favorite candidate doesn't win. So I work with the Bernie Sanders campaign. I love Bernie. I love his policies. I trust his integrity. But Bernie's not the nominee. And so for me, as I am one of those people who have a huge beef with Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden on his worst day, and I say this as somebody who is incredibly critical of him, is still better than the best version of Donald Trump.
Right.
Donald Trump, he has now told, according to the Washington Post, they have a lie tracker where they track how many lies he tells every day. He's told 23,000 lies, which is the most any human being has ever been measured to do. 23,000. That's just in the 3.5 years of his administration. And those are just the public lies that we know of. Facts. On a good day, he's dishonest. On a good day for him, he's still a bigot. And so even Donald Trump's role in mismanaging the pandemic, all of those things, when I go to vote, and I haven't voted by mail, I'm going to go either vote on election day or vote on an early voting day. I'm not pumped up and charged about voting for Joe Biden. In a lot of ways, I'm going to vote against Donald Trump. With all of that said, I have several friends who work for the Joe Biden campaign, friends that I love and trust. I've had several dear friends who have endorsed him and have helped craft some of his policies.
Right.
We will have not just more access, but leverage with Joe Biden. When Joe Biden appoints judges or Supreme Court justices, all of those things, we are way more likely to get people who not only look like us, but agree with the way we see the world. And I plan on, when Joe Biden is elected, just for me personally, I plan on going kind of back to my role as a critic of Joe Biden. I've tried to hold some of that back during this campaign, but some of us need to hold him accountable. And
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I see my role as.
See, it's funny because I've taken this stance and educated myself on American history, understanding that throughout time, the difference between Republican politics and Democratic politics has been overt racism versus covert racism. And the '94 crime bill has been a perfect example of that. But when we're choosing a president, I try to tell people you're choosing someone to sit in a position, but you're choosing someone that's also going to choose a cabinet and also appoint judges. So for me, when it comes to voting, I want to vote someone who is going to, I'm going to vote someone in who is going to think about people who not only look like me, but people who are also dealing with similar struggles who don't look like me. Because ultimately, it's not only about just being a black man. What about black women? What about the LGBTQ community? What about all of the other different demographics and misrepresented people in the government? If we continue to vote the same old 70-plus white males into office, they're only going to focus on that demographic. Yeah. And for me, that's what needs to change. It's not just about the black rhetoric and what, because it's important. We've had a black president before. Mm-hmm. And even during that 8-year presidency, we felt neglected. Once again, we felt neglected. And I think it's fair for us to hold people accountable. I feel like now is a time where we use our voices and we speak about not just the policies of Joe Biden, but the cabinet he's going to put in and the judges he can appoint.
Right. No, definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Well, Shaun, we appreciate you. We thank you so much for joining us. We know you have to run. Hopefully we can do this again. You're also an alumni of Black Love, Doc, just like us.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, those are my people. And I'm so glad we get to tell our stories there. You know, today you're interviewing me, but so much of why I am who I am is because of my wife. And we've been together. So I'm 41. We've been together since we were 15 and 16.
Wow.
And, you know, so much of what I do, I do not just because she empowers me to do it, but she really makes my whole world work. I'm a terrible manager.
Me too. Me too.
Terrible manager of people.
Guilty. I'm guilty. All right.
And I've tried to get better. I don't just I'm trying to grow and get better every day at that.
It's
but
all good. Teamwork.
Without her, you wouldn't even know me without her. And
that's what's up.
She makes everything I do better.
Complementing those weaknesses and elevating the strengths. So thank you so much, Shaun, for taking the time. Love to you, love to your family. All
we're gonna pray for you always. Pray for your family. Keep fighting a good fight. Anything we can do to help get the information out. Continue. Hopefully, we can keep this line of communication. Any way we can use our platforms to push anything that you want to push forward, man. We're here
for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, love and appreciate y'all. Take care.
No doubt.
Take care.
Peace out.
Bye now.
Bye. All right, Shaun King, thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your super busy schedule to clear some things up and to give us some more insight into voting and what's going to be happening leading up to those days.
I appreciate his honesty. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
If people really look at history, anytime a black person, not just a black man, black person, black man or black woman, decide to speak up for the injustices done to black people, they're often villainized.
Yes.
And I can honestly say I think that this is happening to Shaun.
Yeah.
And I wish the best for him and his family because it's not easy to sit where he's sitting.
Bruh. It really isn't.
We can all sit back and throw stones and say he should be doing this, he should be doing that. Why isn't this happening? But until you're able to sit down and discuss things and see the work he's doing, you can't be the judge.
Agreed. I mean, it takes a lot to put himself and his family out on the forefront like this. So major respect out to you, Shaun King.
That was a heavy episode. Very important. Very educational, enlightening. Yes. Hopefully you guys are registered to vote and you get out there and let your voices be heard.
Facts.
But right now we're going to get into some listener letters, kind of lighten things up a little bit.
Okay.
Kadeen's
Let's see what y'all have going on.
I see you with the black leather on, though.
You know.
I see you, little Angela Davis.
Makes me feel a little,
See, I got on a white shirt.
Oh, your shirt
but the letters are black.
And it says what?
It says radical.
Radical, right? You want to be that radical change.
You see that?
Dead ass. Radical. Dead ass. You see radical. Dead ass.
Why the black letters got to be on the white shirt. You see?
Oh, my God. You're hilarious.
All right, so let's start with this first listener letter. All right, It says, listen. I have recently gotten to a place where I feel like I have done so much growth. I went through therapy to work on some of my issues I saw within myself and a pattern I saw in my family.
Okay,
so I feel like a new person.
All right.
I'm 24. Then you did all of that at 24?
All right.
Shoot, just graduated from grad school, talking about it, and I live on my own. I'm at a point in my life where I just want to live life to the fullest. I'm a Sagittarius. So I feel like it's my calling to go see the world.
Facts.
However, that's your favorite word. You love saying that? It must be a Sagittarius thing. However, I feel like I get stuck because I often think about what others say to a certain extent. I feel strongly when it comes to my emotions, so I feel hard when I feel guilt. I do what I want because I am young, and I don't want to take for granted my young years, but I do worry about what others think, like family members. I always feel guilty when I do what is not expected of me. What advice do you guys have for a young black man in his 20s wanting to live life unapologetically?
Nice. All right, brother. Well, first of all, being a super smart Sagittarius, as I can see, you seem to be very aware and in touch, of your emotions, of the way you feel, the fact that you've went to therapy, you've already been to work through family patterns and all that stuff. I think that's a great thing. So you're already ahead of the curve, because some people are still trying to figure that out well off into their years. I will tell you, for me, I had a very similar situation where I got very concerned about what people think. And people being the collective, just people in general, but also, yes, family, friends, all that good stuff. I will say DeVal being the total opposite of not giving two about what people think.
I saved your life.
You saved my life, bro. Yeah. Because there was, for a long time, I was just very like, kind of tiptoeing around things that I wanted to do or things that really ultimately made me happy. And I really had to assess, like, who was at fault here? Who was going to suffer the most if I was not true to myself? And ultimately, you do one thing, somebody has an opinion.
Talk about it.
You do the other thing, somebody has an opinion, good or bad. So if you really live your life riding that roller coaster, kind of like what Shaun said in his portion of the interview, if he was to just like, relish on the highs and then really beat down on himself on the lows, everybody's going to have an opinion about whatever you do. So you might as well do what you want to do anyway.
Look at you sounding like, come here, give me a hug,
I know.
Let me squeeze your butt. See, that's my baby right there.
I'm just saying, I've really adopted that philosophy in life. Who cares?
Girl.
If we had listened to family members, we would not have the platform that we have right now.
No.
If we listened to people saying, y'all doing too much, y'all doing all this stuff on the internet, what y'all doing
Friends
it for?
And family.
You doing it for likes, you doing it for this, that, and the third.
People still say it.
And here we are. Because we didn't listen to it. We didn't. Bro.
Yo, you said everything I was going to say.
Do your thing. If I can go back into my 20s, okay? 20-year-old Kadeen, 24-year-old Kadeen, and be like, sis, here's the tea on doing what people expect you to do, or like worrying about what people have to say. Let me tell you, I've been out here living my whole best life.
This is the analogy I give some of my kids who have the same conversation. They're like, Coach DeVal, man, I don't know what to do. People saying that I should do this. People saying that. I say this. Nobody knows anything. Okay? Listen to me. They don't know nothing. We all wake up every day and we guess. We guessing. There was a point in the world where everybody knew the earth was flat. Think about that. There was a point where everybody on earth knew the earth was flat. And then what happened? We find out the earth is round. But at some point, everybody was telling people, don't go there. Don't go sail out in the ocean because you're going to fall off the edge of the earth. So you know what happened? People wasn't sailing because everybody was telling them what to do. And it wasn't until you pull up your own sail and you use the wind to gust you across the ocean.
Come through analogy.
Brother, find out that the world is round on your own.
Facts.
That's what I'm going to just bring it to that.
Put your sail up.
If you listen to everybody, you're going to walk around thinking the earth is flat. That's all I'm going to say.
And be severely unhappy in the process.
Put your sails up. Put your sails up. Be the wind beneath your own wings.
Or your own sail.
Or the wind beneath your sail. The wings is a song.
I know. So I got that, but I was just trying to like.
You're supposed to be on my team, baby.
My bad.
You're supposed to be the wind beneath my wings. I was sailing on my analogy. I was sailing on my analogy.
I'm going to blow under your wings.
See,
I love that.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I go through? I appreciate you.
No, but yeah, live your best life, bro.
In all honesty, bro, there's no wrong decisions in life.
No.
You make your decisions and you deal with the consequences that you create.
And to be honest,
you man up and you deal with it.
That's and if your family is your family and your friends are your friends and they love you for who you are, they're going to support you either way.
They're going to rock with you.
And if they don't, now you know where you stand.
Period.
They're going
to rock with you.
All right. On to the next one.
Yes.
That was pretty easy. You want to read it or you want me to read it?
I'll
Go
read
for it.
Okay. My family is from Guyana and moved to New York when my mom was a teen.
Okay, bye.
She hasn't been offended. Guyanese. You love Guyanese people?
I do.
Love Guyanese people too. Shout out Wayne Yearwood. Shout out my auntie Angie who helped raise me. She's Guyanese. They've all you finish your homework.
You're putting on the whole accent.
I love you, Auntie Angie.
I love it.
She hasn't been a fan of any boyfriend I've had on and usually doesn't mind her opinion, doesn't give her opinion until after things have ended. Okay. I'm with my boyfriend for about a year and I love him very much. My mother will smile and kiki in front of my boyfriend whenever he's around, but if he's around for too long, she can be rude and snappy behind his back. We recently had a conversation and she basically said that she feels he's not good enough for me. He works, so he's not good enough for me. No, girl, you're not good enough for you, girl. He works in mechanics. He works in mechanics and has stated in the past that he doesn't plan on going back to college. Basically, my question is, did they give you a hard time with who you chose to love?
Girl, why are you going to start develop?
Do you think that it has to do with the culture and how parents view their girl child? Do you want to do this or you want me to take this away?
I know, DeVille. I know. I understand. Okay, listen. Yes.
Mimi hated me.
Mimi did not.
Mimi hated me. All right. She thought I was a thug, a hooligan, a dumb athlete. Thought I was going to just take her daughter away and destroy her life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now look.
That's what happens when you do things and don't care what people have to say. Look. I literally was like, this is my boyfriend though, and I love him, and I don't really care what y'all have to say. So here we are. But I do understand the perspective of, okay, for example, me growing up in my household, two very strict West Indian parents who did not really want their girl child out in these streets, and it was go to school, come home, go to school, come home. Like that's just what it was. So yes, my mother.
But did you always go to school and come home?
No, I didn't. I was taking detours sometimes. You know what I mean? I was taking detours. I was taking. Deval, shut up.
You opened yourself up for that.
I did.
You did. You opened yourself up for that. Okay.
That's awful. Detour. I was not touring like that.
So then you shouldn't use that word.
I wasn't on tour like that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, in order to just get a little bit of freedom, you just start to deviate from the coming straight home process.
Deviate?
Goodbye, DeVal. Somebody turn his mic off. That being said, when time came for me to start bringing boys around, okay, and this wasn't till you didn't start coming around till we were 18 years old at the time. My mother literally said to me, Kadeen, you could have walked through the door with Jesus Christ himself and I would not care. I wouldn't care. I absolutely wouldn't, because you're my daughter and I feel like I know what's best for you. And at that time, I just wanted you to focus on yourself and on your schooling and your career. You could have walked in with
Jesus Christ?
Yeah, pretty much.
And Jesus not good enough for you? Your mother going to hell. Mimi? Peace. I won't be there. Nope. Nope.
Well, I don't know. We might be in the rapture right now and not even know it. We might have been left behind. So who knows? But no, in all seriousness, I did have a hard time in the beginning just because I think it was my parents' idea of wrapping their mind around the fact that there was a young man who was now going to, share my attention, that I would have then taken my eyes off of the prize. And at that time, the prize was getting my education, starting a career, building things for myself, being an individual, being independent, which were valid points at the time.
Yes.
They were valid, and they're still valid now. And it's almost like we look back now, of course, hindsight is 20/20, and DeVal and I both say that mom did have some points. She did.
She did have some points
in wanting me to focus.
She did,
but she definitely didn't give you a fair shot in the very beginning.
But hold on, son, hold on. She did have some points, right? But you can have points and then it's being rude. You can't be rude to other people's kids because you know what could have happened.
Yeah.
You wasn't taking detours then, but you want to detour now, right? And I could have detoured you away from your family, because that happens a lot in families.
It does sometimes.
Some people are so hard on the significant other, right, that once the significant other finally grabs the heart of that person, they separate them from their family, because it's like, you treated me so bad before.
That is very true.
And you're going to choose, once you choose your significant other.
I've seen that in extended family myself.
Yeah, me too. My extended family too. You see the family, the family's tight. That person falls in love with someone who everyone else in the family didn't approve of. And now they go off and live their life and create their own family, because that's what people do.
Right.
There's going to be certain things in your life that I'm going to be able to provide that your family, your mom can't. Right. And I'm not just talking about the detours. I wasn't just talking about the detours. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, there has to be a way for you to speak to your mom about being rude. There was a point in our relationship where I didn't come to your house for about 2 years.
Right. And then it becomes awkward for me because we were in college at the time. Yeah. We would come home on the weekends and there was like I want to chill with my family, but I want to chill with DeVal too. But he was like, I'm not coming to your house. So then I feel divided because it's like, I want to chill with my boyfriend on the weekend and kick back and, have a good time with our families. But then I can't because he doesn't feel comfortable in my house. No. So we did have a period of about 2 years maybe that this was going on until there was finally like, my mom extended the olive branch. I think when she saw he wasn't going nowhere.
Yeah, when I made it to the NFL.
Right, it was around that time.
Yeah.
Oh, see, Mom, that was a bad time.
Yeah.
That was bad time.
I could have scooped you up and been gone. And the thing is, it's not even like a man-woman thing because people said, is it a girl? Is that how people treat their girl child? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I hear so many horror stories about young women who are mistreated by the young man's family. And I'm like, why would you treat somebody's daughter like that? Would you want somebody to treat your daughter like that?
Right.
I have 3 boys. Right? And I'm going to be very particular about who my young men choose to court. Yeah. Because I want them to have a standard that is, was that me?
Oh. I don't know.
I want them to have a standard that they can live up to and be proud of and live and have a person that's going to make them a better person.
Right.
But in no way do I plan on disrespecting anyone's daughter.
Absolutely.
Because when I have my daughter, I don't want nobody disrespecting my daughter. You know what I'm saying?
His daughter situation. We in season 4, you still talking about it.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen, Kaz is potty trained, y'all. Congratulations to mommy and daddy.
I'm gonna say it
We
again.
got a baby out of Pampers.
When I have my daughter,
we've retired the Pampers.
We retired the Pampers. We ain't retired the detour. As long as the detour is still working, there's still a chance for me. There's still a shot. There's still a shot,
baby.
Let
me tell you, there is no end in sight for anything being normal again. There's always detours in this life, huh?
Always
detours in this life with DeVal.
Yes.
Oh my God, it always comes back to the D.
Respect other people's kids.
Facts.
Man. And if they love your child the right way, even if you don't, even if you don't understand everything they do, because even your father doesn't understand everything I do. Your father don't know how I make money.
Right.
And one thing I say about your father, though, he was always respectful, and I always felt welcome in his presence.
That is true.
So I was always willing to explain.
Yes, for sure. You tell the story all the time when you went to ask my father and mother for my hand in marriage, and my father was just like, "Sure, fine by me."
He said, "Fine by me. You guys do what you guys do." Your mother was like, "Mary, you just give your daughter away like that. You don't have no questions." I was like, questions?
I could totally see it too. I wasn't there for it, but I could see you sitting at the table with my mother and my father being his usual, just laid back, chill, like, hey, you want to drink? Let's chill. You gonna marry my daughter? All good. Take her. That's one less person for me to have to support.
The funny thing is,
and my mom just being like, you're just gonna give away our firstborn like that? How dare you?
The funny thing is, your father goes, man, you have questions. You always have questions. What questions you have? Ask the question. Then he said, and got up and walked away. And it was me and your mother sitting there. And I'm just like.
And then you had to get drilled.
Like, so do you have any questions? And she didn't have no questions.
She had no questions.
She had no questions. So
okay.
I was like, so I'm going to do this. Are we cool? So then I gave her £1. Like, I was like, all right.
Did you dap my mother up?
Mom, so I was like, bet. All right, I'm out. Most awkward conversation ever.
I love it. But then at the actual proposal, everyone was in tears and happy and excited and all that good stuff. So good luck to you, sis. Go ahead and have that talk with mom. We got to sometimes have those talks with our very stern West Indian parents and let them know what time it is. Like,
absolutely.
This is what's happening now in the 2000s.
Yes, and if you'd like to be featured as one of our listener letters, email us at deadassadvice@gmail.com. That's DEADADVI. I did it again.
DeVal.
I messed up the ass.
You never mess up the ass.
All right, I don't never mess up the ass. My bad.
You sure don't. You sure don't.
Keep
your hands over there.
I'm trying to get that daughter. All right. Email us at deadassadvice@gmail.com. That's DEADASSADVI. CE.
Oh my God, so much
gmail.com.
D. Dead ass, detours, daughters, all
you
that.
You love it though, but you love it.
All right, moment of truth time. Moment of truth time is simple. Go and vote. I don't care how you do it. If you do it early, if you're mailing it in. I plan to get my ass on a plane.
Yes.
And I'm going to New York. I have some other business to take care of, but I say, you know what? I'm going to position my trip around Election Day. The lines may be long, but you know what? I have it in my mind that I'm going to dedicate that time to go out and physically vote in New York. That's where I'm registered still. Go back to Brooklyn, see my peeps, and attempt to make a change by voting. I'm going to vote. So I encourage you to do the same.
Moment of truth. I was today years old when I found out that only a little bit over 50% of Americans are registered to vote. Mm-hmm. That's embarrassing.
And actually go out to vote.
That's embarrassing.
But we got a whole lot of complaints, though.
Whole lot of complaints. Register to vote. That's the only thing I have to say. Register to vote and go vote. Moment of truth. Register to vote and go vote.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media. We have our Dead Ass Podcast page. It's Dead Ass the Podcast on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm Kadeen. I am.
And I am Devow. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
Dead Ass.
Dead Ass.